You are so sweet. He's always so humble. He's everywhere bringing the love of Jesus, playing that fiddle. I love it. Well, tonight, such a privilege. Everybody that has shared and spoken. And at the end, if there's time, I would love for everybody just to have a little bit of time to hear about Safe America, KSU Students for Life, things like that. But right now, we have Jared Craig, who's the president of the Georgia State Chapter of Veterans for America, caring for our veterans. He has quite a list of accomplishments, and I'm so thankful to our dear friend, again, Stan Fitzgerald and his wife, Donna, for the privilege of introducing us to Jared Craig and having him here tonight. He's doing remarkable work, and I don't know if he has time to stay after, but I have a feeling a lot of you will want to talk to him because he's been involved in so many things, even in regard to J6, so the J6ers. So you are in for a real treat. And I'm going to read a little bit of his bio. He's a son, brother, husband, and father of 2 young daughters, a long-term citizen of the state of Georgia, and reside in Coweta County, Georgia, where his family has been for 6 generations. Wow. After graduating from East Coweta, it's always hard for me because I'm a Yankee, so I got to get these Southern words, even though I've lived here a long time. Coweta High School. He attended the University of West Georgia, where he earned a Bachelor's of Business Administration Management degree. During his time at UWG, he was honored to study at the University of London School of Economics through a study abroad program. Following his graduation at UWG, he attended Atlanta's John Marshall Law School and obtained his Juris Doctor in 2009 after completing an externship with the State of Yap Federated States of Micronesia, where he operated as a staff attorney. Wow. An assistant prosecutor for the Attorney General's office. During his time abroad, he performed legal research for the local legislative body and administrative tasks for the local judiciary, including the prosecution of criminal actions. When he returned to the United States, he sat for the Georgia bar exam and was admitted to practice law in the state of Georgia in 2009. He began his solo law practice in 2009 and practiced criminal defense and family law before branching into other legal fields and functions. When both senators' seats in Georgia were held by Democrats and we were considered a blue state, he became politically active and began to attend local GOP meetings while making daily public statements from the legal perspective on the issues of the day. He decided to run for public office in 2021 and initially entered in the U.S. Senate race, seeking to defeat Raphael Warnock before Herschel Walker entered the race. He withdrew from the U.S. Senate race and was focused on the U.S. House seat for Georgia's 3rd congressional district. He qualified to be on the 2022 primary ballot, where he obtained approximately 18% of the vote. After losing in 2022, he joined forces with the Veterans for Trump, Veterans for America First, which is what our wonderful Stan Fitzgerald works with, and sponsored the John Frederick's MAGA Trump bus tour and traveled with that caravan up the East Coast from North Carolina to Maine, finishing up in Pennsylvania in support of Dr. Oz. Following the 2022 election cycle, he began to promote veteran candidates and America First candidates who support veteran issues through online interviews, endorsements, and consultant activities. He traveled across the U.S. to attend many events for endorsed candidates running for local and national positions, preparing for the 2024 election cycle. During the 2024 election cycle, he was honored to represent VAAF at political events, rallies, parades, visited Mar-a-Lago in support of President Donald Trump many times. VFAF was included in the Trump campaign coalition on the grassroots side of the organization and participated directly with the Georgia and South Carolina Trump campaigns. Beginning in the summer of 2024, he was asked to participate as one of the 100 lawyers for Trump to oversee the election, ballot counting, and review protocols. He volunteered as an RNC attorney at this time to ensure free and fair elections. God bless you. And volunteered for the Trump Force 47th organization and participated in the ground game, including door knocking, speaking at events, and promoting the America First movement. Currently, he's the Georgia VFAF State Chapter President, the National Veterans for America First Vice President, and Chief Legal Counsel. Please give a warm welcome to Jared Craig.
That was quite an introduction. So first, I want to say thank you very much for coming out tonight. I want to say thank you, Suzanne Guy, for inviting me to come speak. One thing that I really enjoy doing is finding people when I go around that I already have social media contacts with, including James here and Rachel in the back and Suzanne Guy. I've been following y'all for a while, and it's nice to actually meet you in person now for a second time, but for James, I think this is the first time. My name is Jared Craig, and I am the state chapter president of Veterans for America First. Suzanne did start off with who I am as a man. First, I am a father of 2 daughters. My daughters are 13 and 9, and I'm elated to see that our country is something that they will be proud of, that their children will be proud of, and that I had a hand in the America First movement in providing a platform. Needless to say, I'm not shy. I'm not one of those that sits quietly on my hands and allows a bunch of crazy stuff to happen. I have positioned myself with the luxury of being able to speak freely and training myself on how to speak correctly and accurately to prevail in the message that we all need to hear and not cloak it in emotional jargon or the issue of the day type of things that cloud substance with emotional ploys. But I felt inclined to share a personal story that I've not shared in any of my speaking engagements in the past. I'm the youngest of 7 children, and my mother was told to quit having kids after, I think, 4 or 5. The story changes, but she was told to quit having kids, so I wasn't even supposed to be here. And growing up in that large family, we also had foster kids in the family. I guess they just had economies of scale thinking with, shopping and recipes. I'm not sure exactly, but my mother and father took extra children into their households, and some of them were at-risk young mothers. So I grew up with a cross-section of high-risk individuals with a good foundation of who I am as a person, with lots of good examples and the generational wisdom of my family to share what we had with whoever was willing to listen. So naturally, I became a lawyer. But, aside of, running for office and getting to where I was here, I felt compelled to fight for the America First agenda, fight for the America First mindset, that we can do it. Before Trump came down that escalator, I thought we needed a cheerleader to get us away from the self-loathing perspective that America was fed for so long. And when Trump came down the escalator, I was thinking cheerleader, but, he was that guy. And his agenda in 2016 was pretty clear and straightforward. But where we are now, we have that foundation, that springboard to distill our American culture, to distill our American policies, to distill our constitutionality in our way of living, the way of operating our businesses, and our interactions with the state and federal government. We have the opportunity now to reset our constitutional republic to the way it was supposed to be, to simplify our federal government to the limited express powers that are in the Constitution, and then reserve all other things to the states. And we saw that with the Dobbs opinion. Thank you. We heard so many things when the Dobbs opinion came about that, it killed Roe. It killed Roe versus Wade. But it really just put the issue to the states. And the issue should have never been at the federal level. I won't turn this into a lecture, I promise, for a law school exam. There won't be any tests or quizzes or questions afterwards. But the idea that the federal government tried to create a fundamental right to murdered babies, that's absurd. Now, the Dobbs opinion came out, he pushed it back to the states. That act right there, I believe, was the start of the snowball effect. The 10th Amendment, before 2016, most people, even in law school, didn't even know what was in it, sadly enough. I would say state legislatures know because they're fighting with the tension between the federal and the state power. But what we have with the Veterans for America First group, we have a collection of veterans, we have a collection of first responders, we have concerned citizens and advocates. I'm not a veteran myself, but one of the things that I am proud of doing is fighting for the interests of veterans. Both of my grandfathers were Navy pilots, not very good. My father's a Vietnam veteran in the Marines. He didn't try to fly for good reason, but I was running my campaign on the America First agenda and a very heavily veteran rights focus. I wanted automatic VA benefits. I wanted to have the resources that were being handed out to illegal aliens put to where they should be spent, that we don't have a contest between the illegal immigrations or any other pet project of our current politicians in D.C. taking away from veterans' rights. So when we got moving, and after the 2022 cycle, I had a lot of free time since I didn't win the race, but nevertheless, we had the goal to educate the people that were in the middle, that weren't complete left-wing lunatics that were trying to do all the things. I know I'm in a church, so I'll watch my mouth, all the crazy stuff over there. They felt abandoned in the middle, and they might not have identified with being a full right-wing conservative, but they felt abandoned. And that group of people, the vacuum of their interest and their focus of what do I stand for, we have part to thank the Democratic Party for acting so crazy for people to reflect and say, that's not me. That's not who I am. That's not what I believe in. So we went on a tour with the VFAF team, with John Fredericks, and we were going up and down the East Coast, going where we were told there were no conservative Republicans. New Hampshire, Connecticut, New Jersey. We were told we were going to find Bigfoot before we found a conservative Republican, and I didn't find Bigfoot, but we found concerned citizens in a lot of places that felt as though that they were isolated. They felt alone. And what we all sought was unity, coming together. We've been bombarded with volume instead of substance. The left speaks loudly. They speak about emotional ploys. They get you riled up, but you can't weave a thread through any of their thoughts, their principles, their policies. What do you stand for? It's a balsa wood pedestal. You're going to tip it, and as you fall, everything falls apart. Where we were under the impression that we were to be held quiet, pushed in the corner, and I think the American people woke up. And I hate to use the term woke, but we awakened. That's maybe a better point, because that comes from within. We were awakened as to what we were willing to put up with. We were told to tolerate until we could tolerate no more. And from, I'll say, the abortion issue, from the immigration issue, to the human trafficking issue, to the drug importation issue, geopolitical currency exchanges, and even in our intellectual property rights, we got to a level where the American people said, we want something to reset this. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We all had that feeling. And as we started to get together in the 2022-2023 cycle, we found that we weren't alone. We found community, not as a subsection of the community, but a cross-section of the community. We're made up of a group of people that are diverse by organic relationships, not by immutable traits, not by false gatherings, and let's identify in a self-segregating way. The conservative Republican movement is an organic, diverse group. And the enrichment of the ideas and the philosophies that are built in makes sense because it's kind of like stating the obvious. You're always going to be right. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't add up, it has a short shelf life. So I'll say that I've had the luxury of being able to state the obvious and use basic common sense and move forward basically on that. And I don't know if that's as rare as it seemed to be in 2022, 23, but we're seeing more people, not just myself who's self-employed or someone who has, I would say, some safeguards built in. I don't work in corporate America, so I don't have an HR department. But we're seeing people that are getting the energy and the platform to speak. And it's crossing all the dynamics and all the demographics. I'm very interested in what's coming up from our youth, coming out of high school into college, and if they can make it through that indoctrination term of years, how they respond to being an adult in our society. And what I saw going up and down the East Coast and speaking to everybody, and also having a large family with teenagers through, I'll say, 30 years old, between my 32 nieces and nephews, they're not full-blown leftist crazy people. They're rebelling against generation, what do they call themselves? I'm X, Gen Z, millennials. The youth that's coming up now see what they've done. They don't see young, happy people trying to mutilate themselves. They don't see the happiness that comes with a conservative, generation-tested life of, well, I'll say time-tested wisdom that you get from generational sharing of basically inheritance. They're seeing the writhing, the angry, the temptuousness that's in the leftist, I'll say, the ilk of the leftist. And they don't seem happy. You can just turn on the news now and see how, I'm watching my mouth, Maxine Waters has gone crazy. We're seeing people, even clergymen, calling for blood in the streets, and they don't seem as though they're preaching a word of fulfillment. They're not bringing light to the issue. They're bringing darkness to it. And what we want to do in our organization is to shed more light on the issues at hand. So VFAF.us is our website. You can see a lot of resources, see who we are, who our ambassadors are, and who our officers are and make up. We're very transparent. We work on all volunteer staff. But the function of Veterans for America First is to educate the voters on the issues. We've made films. I myself snuck into Mexico on the other side of the Rio Grande with a film crew, and we showed what was going on in Eagle Pass, Texas in November of 2023. We illustrated to those that are running for office what it actually means to go down there and see that. And we took a group of grassroots candidates to Eagle Pass, Texas, so they could come back to their constituents and say, this is what's going on. I've been there. I've seen it with my own two eyes, and it's not what the media is telling you. We also have, we've got, and that's available, Border Invasion and American Crisis, a free copies available on our table back there. But we have other films that we've done. One's talking about lawfare and the coercion of the federal prosecution to get people to plead guilty to things that they didn't have anything to do, and things that they didn't do, and we see that with the J6ers. And I know I'm jumping around, but the webs make sense to me as I talk about it. And then our last film we had, it's the focus on the history of Veterans for America First, to illustrate that the military, active duty, first responders, veterans, and alike are conservative American, America First people, that we are following the conservative Republican agenda, not because of who's at the top of the ticket, but because who's at the top of the ticket agrees with who we are as the core of our society, the core of our individual being. We're not being sold a nonsensical agenda. That makes sense because that's what we already believe. Now, since we've gotten involved with the films and promoting content for people running for office, we've been very critical on who we endorse, because we want our endorsement for candidates at the state, sometimes the county level, but primarily the state and the federal level. So you know who the people are, because we'll tell you what they say they were going to do, and then we'll hold them accountable for what they actually did or did not do. And our endorsements were primarily for the America First agenda, I'll say, promoters. Many of them were veterans. Many of them were first responders, and many of them were not, but willing to vote for those issues that benefited first responders, that benefited our veterans. Now, since the election, we've changed gears a little bit. We've gotten a lot of people in office in D.C., and I won't take credit personally for them getting, elected, but us working in conjunction with the voters and everyone else, we replaced a lot of bad actors in D.C. We filled, I think, 6 seats with former Navy SEALs. We've got a lot of incumbent veterans that we kept in place, and we also have been promoting the veterans' rights issues at the federal and state level. A little bit of my intro referenced that I drafted legislation for foreign governments. That sounded rather, I'll say strange and weird, but it was an odd hobby that I jumped into while I had free time overseas, and I was tired of prosecuting people for misdemeanor charges. So I was trying to add laws to the public service system, and those laws specifically added maternity leave for the pregnant women and the special education system for the government of Yap. It's a little small island in the South Pacific. If you look for the map, it's west of the Gulf of America. By about 2,000 miles. But what we've been doing now is looking at the America First issue and taking the Make America Great Again mandate into the slogan into the mandate of making America great again. We're not just going to sit on our hands and watch these candidates or these elected officials go and do their job, and we're just going to, act journalists. We're drafting legislation to preserve our nation. We're drafting legislation to assist in the immigration or mass deportation of those who are taking up our resources, from education, from hospitals, to traffic, to all our resources, including the housing that was established and set aside for veterans. And we are promoting state statutes that are counteracting the George Soros defund the police. And we're very close to having a bill signed that gives additional protections for first responders, fire, police, EMT, even park rangers during their official duties, that they cannot be interfered with or you're violating the law. That in turn will, for public safety, assist in fewer, I'll say, incidents between citizens and the police, hopefully. It will prevent people from interfering and obstructing justice while the officers are conducting their business. And it also will bring in higher quality first responders because they know that they'll be safer. They have a mechanism to create a buffer between them and those that would do them harm. And as a deterrence, they can use these laws, hopefully, to, I'm trying not to speak too in detail as what the statutes are, but to provide safety for the community and safety for the officers. Because we see too many things that start off as a little peppercorn. You get pulled over, and it goes into an exponential heightened moment of rage between either the officer or the citizen, the driver, or whoever's being questioned. And we don't necessarily have to have that. Now, I have a whole discussion on how our immigration issue and the public safety are connected, but I'll stray from that. But Veterans for America First, we are going to be here through the election cycles for as long as we can. We are established in, I think, 12 or 13 states, and we're growing, moving west. Of course, we're starting out in the East Coast, moving west. And what we're doing is we're creating a collaboration of veterans across the country and motivating them to say, hey, your oath still stands. Your oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic, stands. part of your duty is to participate in the political process, to get out and run for city council, run for the school board, run for local race of any sort, but get out and be a part of it. That's the way that we're going to do this. All politics are local. I love the phrase politics of the porch, because it comes from a sense of you're in your community, with your community, talking to a friend that you've invited to your porch. Might be metaphorical or not. I mean, some people might not have a porch, but you've invited them into your circle, and sharing that conversation back and forth is what builds the community. Now, on the issue of saving lives and the issue, the atrocities that are connected to the abortion pandemic, the people have been lied to a long time as to who this actually impacts, where the numbers are coming from, and if someone has a fundamental right to do so. Now, I had the pleasure of writing President Trump a letter about how federal candidates should discuss the Dobbs opinion. President Trump was sitting in a position where he actually put the justices in place to vote Dobbs out, or to vote on the Dobbs opinion and knock Roe out. But all of the other candidates would have stepped into a trap because it's not a federal issue. And assisting those federal candidates to sidestep that issue and say, listen, opponent, you're not going to catch me in this one emotional ploy. I'm going to sidestep that, tell you that that's a state level issue, and it's disingenuous for you even to raise it at the federal level. That's a good way to flip it around. And I believe that that advice and counsel was not only shared with President Trump, but a lot of people. Once again, I'm not shy and I don't shut up very often, but I was very active in putting that out there, and there's some other issues with the Dobbs opinion, but that fight is still ongoing. But the idea that we have to get the right people in office so we can get all of what needs to be fixed in place. Not everybody's going to be perfect on all fronts. So we have to have some patience with some of our candidates to bring to light some of the issues. And that's another thing that VFAF does. We speak to the candidates that are part of our camp, part of our circle, and sometimes we bring up things that they weren't thinking about. And hopefully they can, come aboard to what we're doing, and we draft legislation and let them take credit for it. And then hopefully we can reset our country with a leaner set of laws, with a leaner federal government, and a more meaningful state government between the government and the citizens. The relationship between the citizen and the government, it's at odds with one another. And I think this election cycle told the people it wasn't red versus blue, it's them versus you. And not just because it rhymes, it was a good bumper sticker, but we opened the eyes of so many people who thought they were stuck in a camp. My heels are on this side, this is my belief system, my neighbors have always thought this, blah, 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 blah. And they were given the license, or they realized they had the freedom of having an individual opinion that wasn't spoon-fed or force-fed to them or expected of them for some who knows what reason. So as we proceed, and we will be active in both state and federal races, we want the veterans to participate with our outreach program. We're going to start asking veterans to appear and be known as a voting bloc and to show up at political rallies, or possibly the Right to Life, the clinics, the Planned Parenthood, I can't even say it, it's just horrible to say out loud, which is Planned Non-Parenthood, actually. We want the veterans to make their voices heard, because what they fought for is still worth fighting for. And those of you that are veterans may have felt marginalized, pushed aside. Some are called boomers, some are called right-wing fanatics, and, well, I'm in a church, so we've been called all kinds of things. But rest assured that what we're trying to do is save our country, even for those who don't respect it now. Because if they have the luxury of living long enough to recognize wisdom, they're going to want their rights preserved. They're going to realize that someone fought for what they devalued. And that's at the core of my being is individual rights maintained, small government, the pursuit of happiness. I feel like it's only been 3 weeks that I've allowed to say that. It's an opportunity for us, and not at the expense of others, but at the pursuit of self-enrichment, self-enlightenment, and seeking out what makes you happy. That sounds so plain, but that's what we're here for. We see more people going to church. We see more people talking to one another, and we're building a community that's based upon something real, not a feeling, not an emotion, not a fear. So thank you very much. I want to invite all of you to go on to vfaf.us and look up our films. You can watch those streaming. Follow us on social media. We are back and forth between a lot of events and things, and we will be back in Mar-a-Lago Thursday dealing with other veterans groups and collaborating with those that are like-minded, that want to do the work, and we can gather resources and see where we can best fit one another's weakness and, offset other things. So please feel free to reach out to us through any of the means necessary. And thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you.